Okay, so when you think of Saudi Arabia, what comes to mind? Probably two things, right? Endless sand dunes and just unimaginable oil wealth. But here's the thing. There's this massive paradox at the heart of this powerful nation. It's a country that has pretty much everything, except for the one thing all life absolutely needs to survive: water. All right, let's get into it.
I mean, it sounds like the start of a riddle, doesn't it? How do you build a river longer than the Nile in a country that has zero natural rivers? I mean, not a single one. And yet, they're in the middle of building this man-made water network that's going to be almost twice as long as the Nile. This thing is so massive, it feels like it just defies the laws of nature. So the big question is, how in the world are they pulling this off? And maybe the even bigger question is, why do they have to go to such extreme lengths in the first place? Well, to really get why they'd even try something this audacious, you have to go back and understand the catastrophe that basically forced their hand. See, for decades, Saudi Arabia was, well, kind of unknowingly draining this hidden treasure, a resource buried deep, deep beneath the desert sands, and one that was running out. And that treasure, it's called fossil water. Seriously, just try to picture it. These huge ancient lakes trapped deep underground for thousands, maybe even millions of years. For a long, long time, this pristine water was the kingdom's lifeblood. It supplied almost all of their needs. But, and this is the huge catch, it's a one-time supply. Once you use it, it's gone, like forever.
Yeah, and this quote it absolutely nails the problem. Think about it like a battery that you can never, ever recharge. Every single gallon they pumped up to the surface for a city or a farm was a gallon that nature just wasn't putting back. It was a countdown clock, ticking away, and the country was burning through its reserves at a rate that was, well, it was truly astonishing. So let's break down this timeline to see just how fast that battery got drained. It all really kicks off in the 70s. They had this bold vision, make the desert bloom, grow enough wheat to be totally self-sufficient. Which sounds great, a noble goal for sure, but it came with a devastating cost. By 2003, get this, a staggering 85% of that non-renewable water was being poured onto desert farms. Then, we got a view from space. NASA satellites started sending back these images that confirmed everyone's worst fears. The aquifers were literally vanishing. The alarm bells weren't just ringing, they were screaming. And by 2016, the government had no choice. They had to pull the plug on the whole thing, just to save what little was left for real emergencies. And the amount of water we're talking about, it's just mind-boggling. 2 trillion liters every single year. I mean, to put that into perspective, that is like draining 800,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools year after year. So, with its one and only natural water source on the verge of total collapse, Saudi Arabia had to make a radical pivot. They had to go for one of the most ambitious engineering projects, maybe ever. Okay, so here's the bottom line. The old source was pretty much gone. They had to invent a brand new one, basically from scratch. And that's what brings us to this artificial river, a solution that was born really out of sheer desperate necessity. And look, we're not just talking about a few pipes here. This is a sprawling underground network of pipelines that stretches for 12,000 kilometers. Just to give you an idea, that's farther than driving from Lisbon all the way to Moscow and back again. And it's all buried, all of it carrying that life-giving fresh water across the country. And the amount of water this thing moves, it's just as wild. We're talking 9.4 times billion liters every single day. All of it pumped through this massive artificial circulatory system to homes, to cities, to industries all across the kingdom. I mean, the scale is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. Now, this is where it gets really crazy. Check out this comparison. You've got the legendary Nile River, the cradle of civilization itself. Well, it's barely more than half the length of this man-made system. Saudi Arabia didn't just build a river, they engineered something that absolutely dwarfs the longest natural river on the entire planet. So that brings us right back to the central mystery, doesn't it? If the fossil water is gone and there are no natural rivers, where on earth is all this water coming from? Well, the answer was right on their doorstep the whole time: the massive, super salty waters of the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. Okay, so the first piece of tech they use is, well, it's basically the planet's water cycle, just on an industrial, totally supercharged scale. They take enormous amounts of seawater and heat it up in these giant plants. We're talking football field-sized. Then they shoot it into a low-pressure chamber,
and it instantly flashes into steam, leaving all the salt and gunk behind. That pure steam, they collect it, cool it down, and boom, you've got perfectly fresh water.
All right, the second method, and this is the one that's really becoming the global standard, is even more clever. It's called reverse osmosis. Just imagine a filter with pores that are so unbelievably tiny that a salt molecule can't get through. Forget about a bacterium, no way. What they do is use these incredible amounts of pressure to literally squeeze seawater up against a special membrane. The tiny water molecules, they get forced through, but 99% of all the salt minerals get blocked. It's just pure physics creating pure water. And you can see from this chart right here just how much this technology has completely changed the game. I mean, look at that. A full 2/3 of all fresh water in Saudi Arabia is now essentially manufactured from the sea. And that non-rechargeable battery, that fossil water they used to depend on so heavily, it's now just a tiny, tiny fraction of their supply. A total flip. But this incredible technological triumph, this miracle of making fresh water from the sea, it doesn't come for free. Not at all. There is a massive, and let's just say very salty, hidden cost to all this success. I mean, it's the obvious question when you think about it, right? If you take the salt out of billions of liters of seawater, where does all that salt go? You can't just make it disappear. For every single liter of fresh water they produce, the process leaves behind this toxic, super concentrated, salty sludge. It's called brine. And the amount they create every day is, well, it's hard to even believe. 329,000 tons, that is the weight of the toxic brine these plants crank out every single day. And this analogy it really stops you in your tracks. I want you to picture the largest animal that has ever lived on Earth, the blue whale. Got it? Now, picture 1,600 of them. That is the sheer weight of toxic waste being pumped back into the sea, day in and day out. So this super salty and often much warmer brine literally chokes out marine life. It creates these underwater dead zones where beautiful coral reefs just bleach and die. It completely changes the chemistry of the coastal waters, and that creates this massive ripple effect through the whole ecosystem. It is a colossal environmental challenge and one they are now racing to figure out. So when you put it all together, this so-called impossible river is way more than just a giant infrastructure project. It's a powerful statement about human ingenuity, for sure, but it's also a pretty stark reminder that sometimes our greatest solutions, well, they create their own complex set of problems. And hey, the trade-offs aren't just environmental. Let's talk energy. Just to power the pumps that have to push all that water through thousands of kilometers of pipes, often uphill over mountains, that alone consumes an incredible 9% of the entire country's electricity. Manufacturing water on this scale takes a phenomenal amount of power. And yet, after all that, here is maybe the most surreal fact of this entire story. In 2027, the global hub for discussing the future of our planet's water, the World Water Forum, is going to be hosted by the one country that has no natural rivers of its own. It's just an incredible testament to how a nation that was on the brink of a water catastrophe has transformed itself into a world leader in literally creating water. And that really just leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Saudi Arabia's artificial river proves that with enough money and enough ingenuity, we can engineer our way around some of nature's most fundamental limits. No question. But it also forces all of us to ask a much, much bigger question. As we build these incredible solutions to the problems of today, what is the true price of that progress? And maybe more importantly, is it a price we're all willing to pay tomorrow?